go into like an absolute sneezing fit. I've not got COVID. I'm just allergic to flowers. All right.
That's all right, mate.
My hay fever fucks me up every year.
Oh, mate, mine used to be fucking awful. It used to be terrible.
Like, they couldn't come up with cures for God knows what, but no, we're still stuck with those tablets that don't actually work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, mate, or like you take the ridiculously strong ones and then you're just fucking laid out and you're groggy.
Yep. I mean, I did hear that if you grow up in like a rural area like yourself, you should have local honey, and it kind of like gives you the pollen.
Yeah, that does actually work a little bit. Oh. That does work just a bit. I think it does help as well if you go from like a rural place and then you go into more built up areas. Like I think that's why mine's not as bad, because there's no pollen here to disturb me. So
that's funny, because I mean I grew up in a city in Manny, didn't I? So like, and it was still fucking awful in there.
Maybe really?
I'm just really allergic to flowers. Who knows?
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, that or like grass or some shit. I don't fucking know. All right, brother. I'll give you the opportunity, I guess, to explain who you are. Like, I actually, fun fact, I saw you in Lower years ago now. I can't remember how long ago this was. I think you might have been judging.
Wow, that would have been... That must have been like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, maybe. It was a decent while.
Yeah, because if I was judging or loading, yeah, that would have been a good while ago. That would have been like 3-4 years ago. Did I still have dreads, or did I have an afro?
No. Always had dreads.
Yeah, that would have been like 3-4 years ago. That would have been about 3-4 years ago, I think.
Damn, goes quickly.
Yeah, yeah, super quick, man.
Are you still like training with Lower or coaching there or anything?
No, so that's where when I first moved into London, that's where I kind of like first started working. And just so I wanted to start doing a little bit more stuff online and taking over that part. And Mike's the guy who runs it, his stuff is very much he loves the in-person stuff. So he's done a really good job of how CrossFit's kind of like commercialized, I suppose, like commercialized like the class aspect of training. He's managed to mirror that very, very, very well with his system. Whereas I was going more towards like the online like performance stuff. So I ended up like moving on from there. So now I'm mostly based in a gym in Stratford and built differently, but all of our stuff, like all of the Ronin strength stuff, is online. So we're online first, and then we do the in-person stuff second. So we don't really have a base, as it were.
The Built Differently gym looks really cool. Looks like a really cool environment to train out of.
It's a fucking mental environment. It's one of the only places I've been where you have like the old school approach of anyone who's bodybuilding, anyone who's doing strongman stuff, anyone who's powerlifting or weightlifting, you all end up mixing and talking to each other and training with each other because of the way the space is set out, you do have like your almost separate areas for weightlifting and powerlifting and not bodybuilding stuff. But because you're so close, everyone ends up talking to each other and knowing each other. So that's probably one of the best places I've been that's like kind of improving like strength sport culture, as it were, because it's mashing everything back together.
Well, that's the way it should be, right? And that's the OG way of doing it. Like, there's many ways to skin a cat, and we're all in the craft of fitness, right? So everyone should be together rather than just like, no, you're a bodybuilder, you're a CrossFitter, you're a weightlifter, like go away sort of thing, go into your corners. Like, nah, there's always stuff you can learn, and hey, they're all human beings too. Just go say hello.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it.
Yeah,
that is exactly it.
I did train. I kind of trained out of a bodybuilding gym when I first got into lifting, as in just resistance training, not weightlifting. When I was around about 12, 13, and that was back up in Warrington, and that was very, very similar. Like, everyone that would come in was either GPP just every day, obviously stepping on stage, greasing up. I'm like, you do you, man. Or people were coming in for like specific S&C for their sport, and everyone was just chatting to everyone, mate. And like, that was a really good introduction to the weight room. You know what I mean? You just rock in. I'm like a fucking 12, 13-year-old lad who probably weighs more than half the people in the gym. And they're just like, oh yeah, like, do it this way sort of thing. I'm like, all right, I'll try it that way. Cheers, fella. And yeah, it's funny how gyms have like reverted off that path and gone into their niche. Hopefully everyone can just say like we're all fucking working out, like it's all the same shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is kind of where I think it's going back to. I think CrossFit has helped with that, because you do end up having to do most stuff if you're actually doing CrossFit in the way that you would do it for like the Games of the Open. You have to do gymnastics, you have to do weightlifting, you have to do general strength stuff. I think you even have to like do stuff like cycling, running, and swimming, and like strongman implement stuff now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of combining all that together. But I think the whole niche thing is definitely when like fitness started to become like a thing where it's like, oh, you can actually make a decent amount of money out of this. So everyone was very quick to do the marketing and like, okay, this is my thing. This is my specialty. This is what I'm doing. And then, not to say that's wrong, but then it's almost like they excluded everything else. If you wanted to do something even slightly different, then that almost wasn't acceptable. Like the amount of my friends who ended up actually coming to lower because there were other CrossFit gyms in London where when they said, oh, I want to do a bit more weightlifting stuff, so I'm not going to do quite as many Metcons or WODs, I'm just going to do one or two with you guys, then do weightlifting separately. They got treated weird because they wanted to do something a little bit more weightlifting based, but they still want to do CrossFit as well. That wasn't allowed. It's like you're either doing all the WODs with us and drinking all the Kool-Aid or nothing.
Yeah.
And then they end up coming across to us anyway. So it's like, it's one of those things where most people just want to do a bit of everything, and they want to spend some time getting good at weightlifting. Then that's enough. And then they'll go do some running. Then that's enough. They'll go do some gymnastics. Then that's enough. They'll go do powerlifting. And I think if you can kind of accommodate that, you're going to hold on to people for a long time.
Yeah, 100%. And let's be honest, like if you snatch once a week, your progress ain't going to be that great.
Yeah.
Like it's a fucking skill. Never mind about strength. Like weightlifting is a frigging skill. Like you need to spend time doing the skill. And I think one of the best things about CrossFit gyms, which is going to be really weird, and I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot here, is like when you don't coach CrossFit classes, when you coach specialty classes, because everything's like go, 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 we're doing everything, which is awesome, and you can break down and teach the skill. But when you do the specialty classes, you literally turn around to CrossFitters, absolute mental CrossFitters that want to drive themselves in the ground and say, hey, we're not doing CrossFit right now. You might be in CrossFit, whatever. You might be in a gym that's like an affiliation, but nah, we're doing weightlifting, sit your ass down between sets. We're doing gymnastics, point your fucking toes. And you kind of like strip that down, and then you can implement it back into a CrossFit class. And I think being able to have those specialty classes is really important for people to be able to see it, because they're like, oh, okay. They take that CrossFit hat off and they're like, I'm a weightlifter now, or I'm a gymnast now.
Yeah.
And then when they go back into those normal classes, they've already got that in their mind of like, okay, I'm going to move the barbell like a weightlifter. I'm going to move on the rig like a gymnast, but I'm going to put myself in a fucking hole like a CrossFitter.
I think that is, I think that is very much what, I can never remember his bloody last name. The guy who runs JST in Hull.
Steve Fawcett.
Yes, Fawcett. I can never remember the last name. But his approach, from what I've known from people who've like done his program or from listening to him talk, is very much like that. He was like, for the first like year or two, you're probably just going to be able to go and do your boxes program like the WOD, because it'll have a strength piece, a gymnastics piece, or an Olympic lifting piece and a WOD, and you'll progress just fine. You'll really enjoy it. And then when you get to a point where it's like, right, that's not really progressing me anymore. I'm not getting any better scores. I'm not getting any stronger. Then he's like, then you start to strip and separate everything to then put it back together like a few times a week. And I think that's like, well, when you look at like some of the results he's got, like I think, who is it? There's two of his guys, I can't remember what their names are, but they've gone from like a 140 clean and jerk, like, and it looks hard. Like it looks, you know, when you get like turtle shelled, like it looks like that. And then now, like 6 months later, they're touching on 170.
Yeah.
Because I know that for a fact he separates it out, like he separates things out and he goes, okay, here's the skills that you're shit at or you really need to work at. We're separating them. You're just focusing on these. So for the 45 minutes here, you're just doing clean and jerks as a weightlifter. Just get better at those. Instead of it being like, you're going to do clean and jerks, you've got 10 minutes to work up to single, then you've got to do this Metcon, then you've got to do this what. Like it's separated out. So then you're taking all of it apart to specialize and then shove it back together, which I think is a better way of doing it.
Definitely. And definitely when you go in towards the performance side, the athlete side, the competition side, like if you're just on the GPP or health and fitness, or like you're just an everyday, like kind of just want to get in, get out, I do believe the CrossFit model fucking works. Like just get in, do the fucking 1 hour, go home. But if you're like, nah, I'm going to like adapt my lifestyle to improve my performance, yeah, we need to start fucking around with separating things and then start thinking about, hey, like think of it as a skill. Like, right, rowing is a skill. You've got to play a little bit of time with the rowing. Swimming is a skill. So's weightlifting. So's gymnastics. Everyone's just like, nah, like it's just throwing a barbell above me. Just get me hyped up, man. I'm like, oh God, okay. So how did you get into weightlifting?
So for me, it was probably at Bedford Blues Academy, I think. So I must have been about like 17. I basically knew how to do like power cleans a little bit. I taught myself a bit of it and didn't really know anything about like power snatches or anything because there wasn't really anything around at that time, like on YouTube or like wherever. So the coach there, who's actually, I think he's a strength and conditioning coach. He went to Gloucester. I think he's back at Bedford now, called Jamie Bain. He basically took all the academy lads, got us together and went, right, so I don't have a lot of time because I've got to manage all of you in the seniors. So I'm going to show you how to do these lifts. It's just going to be 5 lifts that I'm going to get you to do for the program. I think it was power snatch, power clean, then back squat, bench, and like how to do RDLs. That was it. Anyway, I'm going to show it to all of you. Watch each other so you know how to correct each other, so you don't fuck it up. So I don't have to show it to you again. And he just showed me like how to go bar for a snatch. I was keeping a mile away from me, so he went, just keep it in your hip, like you're going to touch it on your hip, and then just jump. He's like, oh, okay, cool, jump and punch, and then see if you can jump, punch, and then squat down quickly. And he was like, okay, cool, yeah, that's brilliant. And he's like, okay, here's all your programs at. And he's like, you can do, I think he just said to me, you can do full cleans and full snatches if you want, because your mobility is good enough. And then I kind of did a bit of it from there, and I thought it was fun. And then after the academy kind of finished, and we all kind of went to different senior clubs, I didn't have any guidance with S&C anymore because I didn't have access to him. So I started looking around the web, and there was one article by a guy called Lou DeMarco, who I found out recently, he's like basically one of the best coaches in America ever for weightlifting. And he just had this little article being like, oh, here's what I did to adapt weightlifting for my American football team in a small college that he used to coach at. So I said, oh, could I have the programs if you still have it to hand? He sent it to me. And then every now and again, he'd say like, oh, how are you getting on? How's like the technique coming along? How are you getting on with lifting? And I'd send him the odd video, back when it took like an hour to upload it, a thing to an email. Yeah. He'd look at it and be like, oh, just try and like keep your wrists a bit straighter. Try and like keep your butt down a little bit. Try this, try that. Oh, try this exercise. You might like it. And I just kind of progressed more and more to the point where Lower started doing their open series. And someone said, there's an open comp. You don't have to have a membership. You can sign up online. You should do it. So I did that. Mike then said, you should do another one of these and do a proper comp. And I was like, oh, yeah, I will eventually. Did another open comp. And then he said, oh, like, should we talk about you maybe doing a comp this year? Like, I'll help you. And I said, yeah, I'll think about it. And then he just messaged me one day being like, oh, you free on this weekend to come and train? I was like, oh, yeah, I'll put it in my diary. I can. He messaged me back like 2 days later being like, you owe me 30 quid. I've entered you in a comp. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what do I need? And he went, you need to get a singlet. So I got like the classic, like, budget strength shop singlet everyone gets on their first comp. And then I think I got started that way. And since then, like it wasn't a straight transition. I went from playing rugby at the highest level I could to trying to play rugby at basically a level that I thought I'll still enjoy this. And then it's not as hard as it was before. And basically started doing weightlifting and rugby together just because I enjoyed it. And then eventually I started playing rugby less and less and then doing more and more weightlifting, and slowly it just transferred over and over and over until it was just a point where I was like, oh, fuck, I'm just a weightlifter now, because I didn't really plan for it to stop rugby, but all of a sudden I just changed. I think that transition probably happened when I was like, I reckon I probably transitioned fully over when I was like probably like 22, 23, like where I went, okay, Leah, I'm just weightlifting now.
Wow. Like what was juggling ruggers and weightlifting like? Because that is two opposing fucking sports.
When it was union, so 15s, then I had 7s in the summer. It's fucking awful because I don't like playing in the winter at the best of times. So doing pre-season and lifting then was fine. It wasn't that bad. Playing union, because I used to play, I managed to get myself and escape the front row and go to like flanker or centre. And that was like, just some of the leagues that we played in were just fucking hard. So like doing the weightlifting stuff was fun. But like I was still doing it like, oh, I just like doing some S&C stuff. But realistically, I didn't need to get any stronger for rugby. I just enjoyed doing it. So it didn't really matter too much. When I went to rugby league in 7s only, that was when like, because I had like basically half a year not playing rugby and no contact, I could still train just as hard then as when like I didn't have any rugby on. So I think like some of my best numbers on Olympic lifts overlapped with when I was still doing rugby at the same time, because I don't know. I think because of 7s in league, I just recovered a bit better from that. So like it wasn't sustainable with how much work I'm doing now, but in terms of the training, I found it was all right actually.
Oh, decent. You're a pretty mobile lad though, aren't you? Like naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think I managed to hold on to it and improve it, whereas most people, like the longer and longer they play, they just get stiffer and stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, and more stuff starts to lock up.
You see someone come in and they're like, "Oh, I've played rugby for the past 10 years," and they like their overhead squat looks like a bench press.
I'm already assuming that like their squat's going to look like they're trying to like look up their own ass, like when they first try an overhead squat. I'm going to assume that there's going to be some things to fix here.
It's funny because as soon as I came into weightlifting through CrossFit, right, and I came in through that, and I'd played rugby for like 5-6 years tops, and then came into that, and literally mine was exactly the same. Like I couldn't squat anywhere near parallel. My fucking overhead squat was basically a bench press.
Yeah, I think yeah, I can't remember. I don't think I had to do that much. I think it's probably because by the time I started playing senior rugby, where it's like more contact heavy, like I think I'd basically already learnt overhead squat and front squat and all that stuff then, so my mobility was pretty much fine from that.
Yeah, definitely by doing all those things, it's gonna keep you pretty mobile.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So how many competitions have you end up going into?
It must be close to 20-ish, I think. Like if you count
damn.
like all the lower invitational comps and then stuff like all like the different like normal kind of like domestic comps and then like nationals and stuff, I think, but I'm not sure on the exact number. I haven't actually counted that, but I think it's around 20.
And it's are you in the 89s?
Was 89. As soon as they said that's basically not really a weight class for most international comps, we all get pushed to 96. So most of us are going for like Commonwealth Games next year. But the issue with that is they've done Olympic classes. So all of us who were 89 have had to go, are we cutting to 81 or are we going up? So I've just gone up. So I've cut to 85 once, and that was like the most awful thing. Like I hated it.
Going up to 96?
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, I used to weigh around 95 to 100 when I played rugby. So then I came down to 94.
Yeah.
And then I think at one stage it's like, oh, you could do quite well. And this is like one of the decisions me and Mike made when I was first cutting down. So you could do quite well at 85. So I was like, I cut to 85, awful. And then that was when they announced we're going to have an 89 class. And that was like bang on where I could sit fairly comfortably and do quite well. So if that class comes back in competitions, then I'll probably do that, to be honest.
I don't like it when they strip it and then you've got to go massive jumps. Like it's too much, especially for people that sit right in the middle. Like bulking up is a big ask, but cutting down is an even bigger ask.
Yeah, like as well, I think like for most people who are going to take up weightlifting from countries where it's not the main sport, so like not in China, not in Japan, not going into Russia and stuff, even where you just have like more athletes to select from, what you're going to find is that I personally think that around 85 to 90 kilos is where like most like British blokes will sit if they train quite well. Whereas to go up to 96, like you're really having to do a job to put on a fucking slab to be able to get up to that body weight. And even if you do it and you're fairly lean, it's not comfortable. Like I'm quite lucky that I'm built quite wide and I will naturally sit at about 94, 95 and I feel fine. Whereas if I go to 100, that's when like resting heart rate goes up. I feel shit. Like I have to stretch more just so that I can then sit in, like actually warm up for a session. I feel more tired in between sessions. I can't do as much volume, but like I know people who feel like that if they get to like 92, 93 kilos, but they're the ones who are being told, oh, you've either got to go 96 or you've got to go 81. So it's like either way what you did when you played wing in college, or you've got to go up to 96 where you have no business being. So it's like that. It's that hard choice where I know a few people have basically just gone, I'm probably not going to do this. I'm not going to go for this Commonwealth Games. I'm going to go for the next one, or I'm just going to call it quits on trying to go, because they're just like, well, there's no option.
It's like my brother. Like he's a powerlifter, and he's like pretty much the same height as me, and I'm 5'10". He might be like half an inch shorter than me or something like that, and he sits super light. Like he has to bulk to 80 kilos. You know what I mean? But he'll pull like 220 off the floor like it's fucking nothing. And I'm just like, how the fuck can you weigh that and do that? You know what I mean? Like if I weighed that, I don't think I'd have the energy to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, it is funny, like seeing those different body types.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Fuck, it is. And then you do see people that are just naturally walk around at 110 and they don't have to look at a weight?
Oh, mate. Well, honestly, I think one of the guys that I compete with, Dave, he's like in the 10. Well, he's like a 109 really, but if he doesn't train, or then he doesn't actually do he doesn't lift, he just shoots straight down to like 100, and it's not even like it's that difficult. Like he just always sits like around 100, 105, 100, 105, and he doesn't cut or anything. Like if he's going into the 102s, he'll cut a week out and he'll go like, right, I just won't drink as much and I won't eat as much food, and then he'll just turn up on the day weighing 101, 101.5, like that easily, which just is frustrating. So everyone else is like, all right, I'll start my cut. It's 12 weeks out. I'll have to start cutting now. Whereas he's literally like a week before. He's like, right, yeah, better keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Just make sure don't go too far over.
I get a medium milkshake rather than an extra large.
Yeah, literally.
It's fucking mental, mate. Like, and it's really interesting when you get to coaching it, right? It's annoying, like competing next to it because you're like, fuck you, I've got to cut. But it's really interesting coaching it. Like, how many people do you focus more on the performance side? Do you go more the GPP, or do you go fuck it, I'm going to help everyone?
So we try and have a case where there is a pathway to help everyone. It's the case of like, hey, you're doing this as a sport. You're joining a team. We want it to be so that like you can actually have the whole pathway. So the only thing we haven't really done previously is we've not developed that many internationals, which is what we're trying to do now. But we have developed people from like people who've never lifted before, who haven't got any sport background, to people who are got a really good sport background. They've been doing CrossFit a bit, now they want to transfer over. But the idea is it should be like a rugby club where you've got eventually, when we get back to the gym, some kind of age groups. Then you've got like, if you look at it on like a rugby team, you'd have first, seconds, thirds, and vets, for example. So we have like a case of like, there's some people who will be able to push for medals at nationals. There's some people who might be able to qualify for an international in the next couple of years. And there's some people who are like, they just want to qualify for nationals. They want to kind of like get to like national level. Then we have some of our masters who will be able to go to masters nationals, maybe masters Euros. And then we have a group of people who they're literally just learning to lift. Like they've got their first barbell, they're learning to lift in lockdown now. So we just try to make it where, with the amount of coaches we have, each person almost has like their stage that they take over. So everyone knows how to coach everyone from each section. But like, for example, like Ian is our guy who basically handles a lot of the masters and all the beginners and the kids, because he's very, very good and he's very experienced with developing people. And he's a master himself. Like he started learning to Olympic lift when he was like 34, 35. So he did S&C through rugby, and then he started learning to Olympic lift quite late on, if I remember it right. So we just try to have that pathway. So you can start with us as a beginner, and hopefully you would then end your career with us whenever that is, having totaled the highest thing you're ever going to total.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Like, what made you get into that? What made you want to start? Did you started running, right?
Yeah. So I probably started online coaching again. So I used to, I remember it was back when me and one of my mates, Tom, opened our first gym, which he still has now in Bedford. Well, it's just outside of Bedford, called Tribe Strength. And there was a case then, he kept telling me like, because like there'd be like random stuff where like the conversation would come up where like we'd be doing DIY to get the place ready, and I'd be doing stuff like the paperwork legislation, like safeguarding policies, making websites, and like starting up the programming system. And he'd be like, you should do this as part of a job. Like you should do programming or do this online stuff for other people. I was like, I don't want to. Like it's boring. I kept saying, oh, it's boring. I like coaching in person. And then more people who, let's say, would come to the gym and then leave would ask for it. And I was the only one to do it. So I'd keep doing more online programming. And as I moved on from there and came down here, there was a few people who were like, oh, well, we still want to get weightlifting coaching for you. So then they'd stick with me. And then the more and more I'd pick people up, like naturally, you know, you'll get someone who like moves countries to go work somewhere else. Then I'd hold on to them, and it just picked up to the point where it was like, I can't just be that guy who's a PT who happens to do online training anymore. I need to be an online coach. But it's like, but this is going to get busy enough where it's not just going to be me. So the guy who kind of like helps me like with business mentoring stuff said like, you need to scale this because you're going to get really busy soon. And then what you're going to do if people only can come to you. So that's when I started the Roan Strength, because I was also wanting not just to create a service where it's like, right, so I can have a business off of this where it's not just me having to do the work, but also like a lot of my friends who were coaches who I thought you're good and I would actually work with you, were in jobs or like fitness or in situations in the fitness industry where they were earning okay cash, but it wasn't a great environment. So I wanted to create an environment where the coaches also get paid fairly decently and are actually treated well and, you know, get compensated for their time as well. So that was the whole thing. It's like supposed to be a pathway for hopefully eventually coaches with mentorship stuff there, and then a pathway where, because there's enough of us, you create a pathway for the clients as well.
Do you offer in person too, built differently, or is that like a different?
Yeah. Yeah, so we offer in person at Built Differently. That's like our main place, really.
Yeah.
That's like the most popular places that everyone wants to go there. And then there's another place where we started very recently before lockdown in Stratford, and that was a case of just trying to spread it so that people who can't get to Built Differently can go to Stratford. People who can't go to Stratford can go to somewhere else. Just create more opportunities for the coaches as well. Because like we run a few evenings at Built Differently, but then we've got more than 2 coaches, so then we need another place for everyone to coach. So that's kind of what we did, but we very much sold it as we're online first, because then that means there's no barrier for you to work with us. So you don't feel like if you can't work with us in person, then it's like, oh, well, now I can only do online. It's like, no, you get your programming online, so we get to see all of your training every week. Then if you want to do it in person, you can, but you don't have to pay to come in as like a minimum, if that makes sense. So like everyone pays £70 a month, and it's a case of it's £70 a month. You get all of your coaching. If you want to come in person to train as well, then you pay on top. But it's not like because like some CrossFit gyms will be like, if you want the personalized programming and PT and unlimited gym access, it's like 200 quid. Like we were like, well, the most important part is you having a personalized training program and a coach to make you accountable. So let's just do that bit first and then add the rest on top.
So what was like some barriers that you ended up like facing when you were like, hey, I'm going to go full blown online? Because it's tough, right?
Yeah, I think I was in England, and not like, I always try and figure out how to watch. I always struggle to word it in a way where it's like, I'm not being rude about people, but there's not really that many people who were doing like, we are an online coaching business. Like if you go and look up, let's say like some American brands, or even like some brands in like around like your neck of the woods, Australia and New Zealand, there's some brands that you'll know where like, I know I can go and get a program off of them. So like if I'm in America, California Strength, Waxman's Gym, Juggernaut Training Systems, like you can reel off a bunch of places where so I know I can go to them and get a decent powerlifting, weightlifting, or strongman program. If you want CrossFit programs, literally any box of any a CrossFit athlete you like, you can go and get an online program from them. Whereas here in England, like it's a case of there's a lot of brilliant coaches, whether it's like more new school ones who are kind of like probably around like our age, or whether it's like some of the old school ones who are like, let's say like Giles Greenwood and Andy Callard, who were Commonwealth, if I've got it right, like Commonwealth Games winners. They went to Worlds for Britain. They were some of our best lifters. George Manners went to the Olympics back when it was still the 3 lifts, not the 2, when it was clean and press, snatch, and clean and jerk. And you can't find them online. You can't go and get a program from them, mostly because some of them, they've never needed to do that, but also because that's not what they want to do. But when I started, I thought, oh, it's going to be quite difficult. Like, I don't want to take on too many coaches too soon because it's going to be really difficult. But as soon as I started advertising, because we started probably about 3 or 4 months before lockdown, we started getting more people in because they were like, oh, there's actually a programming option. I can get some solid support. They'd see the content we put out online. So we had a steady drip of people. But then once lockdown started, I know that a lot of people who are a bit more old, like traditionally minded in England, don't believe in online coaching. So we were some of the only people who did it. So I think that's kind of where we were just lucky with our timing. Lockdown happened and we managed to survive it because we're one of the only places who did weightlifting coaching that included the strength and conditioning portion. So when people are like, I don't have a bar at the moment, it's like, that doesn't matter, we can still help you. So then people kept on coming in because it's one of the only places you could go. Like, there's, I think, as far as companies go in England, I think the only ones I know of in London are us, London Strength, which is one of my friends, Christian, and Omar, Mike at Lower, obviously, because he runs his stuff online, and a guy called Alex Adams, who runs something called, what's he called his company? Stand Fast. He was one of the people who did online coaching for a while, but then branded up. So there's a few places, but there's not loads that have been like, that have been going for a while. I think that's where we kind of got lucky.
Yeah, there's definitely a gap in the market, and the last year has highlighted that. You get a lot of booty builder, online PT, but for the online weightlifting, more strength sport, there's not so much. You do have to dig a little bit deeper, or you have to go, hey, I'm gonna purchase a program from America, which is sound, which is good. Like I've played around with the Cal Strength before, and I like it. Like, it's good stuff. But if you want a little bit more closer to the home and you don't have the the time zone problems, then yeah, definitely, like Britain, apart from you guys, I've not seen anything else.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a couple more in London, but there's not a lot.
Yeah, I think that's also because I think some people seem to have like this idea that coaching weightlifting isn't going to be a full-time job unless you're doing it alongside CrossFit, or unless you're doing something else on top of it. So like, it's an add-on, whereas actually it's like, well, a lot of people think that, but there's a lot of people who want to get good at weightlifting, whether it's for CrossFit, just because they love training that way or because they want to compete. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you just jump on this and you're one of the first people to do it, you're probably going to earn a decent amount of cash. Like, there's some people I know who earn quite a bit from doing stuff online. They don't advertise because why do they need to? Because they're one of the only people to do it. So they charge what they want, and then that's all they need to do. They don't need to advertise. They don't need to reach out any further. So then it's almost like there are people who do it, but you don't see the examples. Whereas like in America, you can go and look at Cal Strength's website, look at their program, and get a free sample, and you can have a very good impression of, okay, so I kind of understand how you're going to write a program to fit for a bunch of individuals doing it online that I'm not really going to see that much. And I know how to write it so that it looks like a solid business. Like, you can get a feel for how it's supposed to go. Whereas in England, there isn't as much of that.
100%. The market isn't as crowded. Plus, like, going back to your point of like people wanting to do weightlifting and get better at weightlifting for CrossFit, you and I both know the benefits of doing weightlifting for sport. Never mind, like, yeah, granted, CrossFit is now a sport, but we'll go the more traditional sports, rugby, football, hockey, all that sort of stuff. Like, I would love to see in the not so distant future there being programs for the youth, for academies, for kids to go through their sport, to get better at their sport, but by implementing the Olympic lifts in their training.
Yeah, I think that's just like I know that our background is probably because we went to gyms where we got shown to do a bunch of different things. Is kind of that's what they do. Like, if you talk to anyone who's ever been to China for the weightlifting program, or has gone to America, or has gone to even like heard of like the way the Soviets used to run their system, like you end up doing lots of different lifts and lots of different strength and conditioning work when you're younger. So that then it's almost like you're ready for whatever sport you choose, because you've almost taken the benefits of each of them and gotten it. So you're doing a bit of weightlifting stuff and strongman stuff and gymnastics and, you know, mobility work, and then, you know, conditioning. So it's like you're gonna be balanced enough to go into whatever sport you choose, whatever sport your country chooses for you. And I think that's what we miss out in England. Like, England has very much gone down almost like more of an American route. It's like, oh, right, so you're really good at rugby, or you're really good at football. Well, football's the worst for it. You're really good at football. Okay, well, you're on a contract now. You're 8, but we think you're going to be really good when you're 18. So we'll put you on contract now, and you're just going to do football. Like, that's the prime example. Then a lot of those kids burn out, and you never see them again. Whereas you'll have someone who's like Jamie Vardy, just played, did whatever, was in like his 5th team at university, then randomly got a contract when he was older, probably because he played a bunch of sports when he was younger, and then was allowed to develop. I don't know if he did any gym stuff, but I'm guessing just having a bit more of a well-rounded gradual development probably helped a bit more.
And also for injury prevention, man, like, how many people do you go to school with or an academy with or whatever, and you're just like, this kid is gifted, like, can grace any sport and would be able to be a professional in any sport, and yet they get injured and it absolutely breaks them and they will never recover from it. Like, get them training.
Yeah.
And the injury prevention is going to sort them out.
Okay, yeah, like, I think people don't really understand like how, like, you can have it where like you're, especially like with footballers. Like, one of our friends, James, he's probably actually a good person that you'd like, and a lot of people listening to this will like. His name's JR_athletes head on Instagram, but he's told me stories about he'll be coaching like a Premiership footballer, like, or like someone who's like they're going up the leagues quick. They can't, and they can jump like their counter movement jump into the air will be like 35-40 inches, and their sprint times will be absolutely ridiculous. They can't trap bar deadlift 50 kilos off the floor, like, with good form. Like, and he's like it's astounding. But this is why, like, if people could understand like the elasticity strength deficit this person has, they'd understand why they get injured, like why they go to take a cut and then like they randomly blow out an MCL or an ACL, because it's like they've got literally the ability to put so much force through their body, but their body doesn't have the actual capacity to hold it. So then that's why it just all of a sudden goes. But then you get the opposite, where it's like Torres for Chelsea. Like, I remember, I can't remember what game I was watching. I remember like seeing highlights of him one year at the end of the season, and the next season I just remember watching this absolutely massive bloke just skying balls into like row Z, and I was like, who is that? And it was Torres, and he looked like he bulked up by about a stone. He looked like brilliant, but it was literally like, you have done that too quickly.
Yeah. Have you had some aid doing that, fella? Like, you've been out for 4 weeks and you look like you've doubled in size.
It just reminded me of, like, you know, when you'll be like going into like sixth form, like last few years of college, and then like there's like one person who's like just starting to hit puberty, but they go gym over summer and they come back and everyone's literally just like, oh my God, what's going on there?
Yeah, we
It's
had a
like he'd never
fella.
gone gym before.
We had a fellow who must have been like 2 years above me, right? And he was knocking on maybe north of England rugby or whatever. He was a decent rugby player. He wasn't the best, but he was a fucking good rugby player. And he came back after 6 weeks, and no word of a lie, he must have put on 20 kilos. Like, absolutely, like, couldn't touch his elbows together, was like walking around like he's carrying carpets, like absolutely yoked. And you just look at him, you're like, hold on a minute. What's going on here?
Yeah. I think some of us used to joke about stuff like that. But there was one kid who I think actually got popped at I think it was like a Midlands trial, and it was like the stage before he went from Midlands into the England trial bit. And like everyone basically jokes about this kid being like, if anyone's on gear, it's definitely him. And everyone's joking, being like, oh no, he's just been training for so long. He used to train at like a few bodybuilding gyms that had like that reputation. But everyone was like, he's been that size since he was like 12. Like he's not gotten that much bigger. Same as like we had a guy that I used to play with called Curtis, and he like came in and he weighed like, he was like 115 kilos when we were 16, 17. And everyone's like, oh, like, what do you deadlift and what can you squat? And he was like, oh, I don't know really. And like everyone just thought that he just didn't really go heavy. But when we went to the gym, he literally couldn't do any of the lifts. So like we were just like, how have you got this big? And it turned out that he worked on a farm. So he did like a lot of like labor stuff. But then this kid got popped, and everyone was like, that was the first experience we had where one, we'd seen a drug tester, and two, we'd seen like, okay, this is what happens when you go gym. This is what happens when you do the extra stuff.
Yeah.
But this bloke was literally like, he's like 20 stone and he like had abs. So everyone was like, but this is when we were like 17. So obviously everyone's like looking at him like, wow, that's mad.
Yeah, and you don't
just thinking, oh yeah, I'll do the same gym program as him. Yeah, I'll just go gym with him and it'll be fine. I'll get the same size.
Yeah, you don't second guess it, do you? You're just like, oh wow, like you must have trained hard in the summer. You know what I mean? Rather than just be like, oh, like what if you had for a little bit of aid?
Oh, 100%, mate.
So where's your vision going with Ronin? Like, where do you want to take this?
Me personally, I would just like it if we'd have it where all of our coaches would have the option to be able to be completely full-time and employed, where they're making it like a decent living, where they'd be able to be coaches for like the next, realistically, until they don't want to coach anymore. So it's not a case of they end up getting to like their early to mid 30s and then they just do what a lot of guys I know do, and they tap out and they go do another job. I want them to be able to do it for as long as possible, because I think that's what's one thing that again, the guy that I used to in the gym in Bedford with Tom taught me was like, staff turnover kills a lot of businesses, because you want that familiarity, you want those same faces, you want your staff to develop together and be a team. And if you have too much staff turnover, it just turns into a pure gym or the gym group where a new PT comes in and out every month, and you just don't really have that. You don't really have that cohesiveness with your team. So I'd like it where the coaches can earn basically a good living out of and be set after they stop. In terms of the coaching stuff, the path we're doing at the moment, we've got the right structure in place in terms of we want to be able to develop kids. We want to be able to develop like younger people. We want to be able to do strength and conditioning for them, and then develop them into hopefully being able to just reach whatever potential it is they're going to have, whether it's they just want to medal at nationals, that's as far as they're going to go, or whether they want to medal at Euros, if that's as far as they could go, or they want to go to the Commonwealth Games and get gold, and that's where they want to go. I just want to be able to make the most complete pathway possible. So it's a case of, it'd be like, it's like trying to look at like the rugby academy or the local football club in your area, and you know that they're mustard. You know, if you get into the academy there and you can stick it out, you're going to be good. That's what I want it to be for both the coaches and also for the people coming on board. And eventually mentorship stuff for coaches, and for I think this is the thing we'll probably get going soon, is the mentorship for coaches to help other coaches develop their skills, so that they see that you can make a living from weightlifting as well and teach them how to do that better. And then mentorship for getting people who want to get into coaching and weightlifting who don't have the money to do so, because weightlifting is a really weird sport. In like in other countries, it's a poor person sport where basically it's like you've got no other option. You don't have a lot of money. You're going to do weightlifting or boxing. That's essentially it. Like I think one of my old clients was from Egypt, and that's what she basically said. Like Mohammed Ehab, like he was the main lifter in Egypt. He was like, it initially started as a poor person sport. Like Mohammed Ehab's like the superstar who's kind of changing it, but it's not a very, very like money-driven sport. Whereas in England, CrossFit and weightlifting is a very money-driven sport. So it's hard to get into it. Like if you're looking at a qualification, let's say you want to work at, in strength and conditioning, you might be looking at a university degree and getting your like your NVQ or reps or your Premier Global NASM qualification before you start. So you're already going to be like 35 grand in the hole in debt before you even start. So I'd want to help people who really want to get into it but they don't have any money. That's the next thing we're looking at.
That's mega, man. And I think that is a huge problem. Like I mean, especially in Britain, you live in a pay to play society, right? Where it's like everyone can progress and do what you want to do, but you need like the world behind you in terms of finances. And even going back to the whole ladder system with your athletes to come through, that's going to help kids that might end up being on the street. You know what I mean? Might end up going down a wrong path for a few years, or might end up seeing the inside of a cell or whatever. It's like, hey, come in, throw a barbell around, learn how to move it well, learn how to respect it, learn how to develop a bit of discipline. Like I know for a fact, like fucking sport ended up saving me, mate. And what better than the barbell?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And it will help you with whatever the sport you're going towards in terms of learning discipline, learning how to train. But I think it was the same for me. Like, I think when I was younger, like I think I started off like doing sports, so like skateboarding, like BMX and like stuff like that, and parkour and different things. And then when I got into rugby, it was a sport that I kind of actually understood. And it helped me to like make more friends, be like less socially awkward, and like learn that like you can train for something, there's other things to aim for. And my dad will like literally just like he'll absolutely shout about it and say like rugby, when it came to the point where it was like I realized that you could do it for a job, or there was such things as professional sports, he's like that was the making of me. Like that was when I started to actually be able to take direction, to be more independent, to take responsibility for things. So I think with weightlifting, I'd like that to be the same thing, like, and show that like it's not just about being an athlete. Like if you can coach, or you can be representative for the sport, or you can be a manager within the sport, there's loads of different things you can do within it to have a positive impact for you, on yourself and for other people. So I think that would be the thing. And well, hopefully just have a small part in growing, well, the biggest part we can in growing weightlifting in Britain as well, because it's growing, but it still needs to go across that threshold to be where it is in like America, where like it looks like it's pretty much a profitable sport where people can get stipends for training at certain levels and stuff.
Yeah, and it's widespread over there for athletic development, and it like all the kids know how, or know what a power clean is and a power snatch, or even if it's a hang power snatch or whatever. But in the UK, like even if you'd have come to me when I was training and be like, "Oh, what's a power clean?" I'd be like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Never heard of it, never whatever. Just training in the back alley sort of gyms, dirty, gringy sort of stuff. So it would be really cool to bring that in, and like you said, it isn't expensive. Like you get a crappy barbell and a couple of shit plates. Like it's not that expensive.
Yeah, it's that whole thing of like it's the general and stuff like it's changing. Like in terms of like, even like Alico have now got like their like online shop where you can choose like financing options. Like if you get like a training hall set of like 160 kilos with the fractionals, I think you're probably looking at like 3 to 4 grand, like for the whole thing. But if you spread that out over the next like 10 years, of which you'll be able to use it, I reckon, then it's going to probably cost you a bit less than your gym membership, and you're going to have more access to it. Like it is affordable. It's just kind of like trying to work your money in a way that's going to make it so that you can get access to it.
And like those barbells, those Alico barbells will last you a lifetime. Like if you're not just like leaving it out in the cold and the rain and throwing it around like it's nothing, then it will last you a lifetime. The plates might chip and wear away and whatever, but the barbell, they're so good, man.
Yeah.
They're fucking
I think
brilliant.
I think my friend Dave he's actually works in Manchester, funny enough. Like he sold me my first Alico barbell, and I think bought it. It was an ex-demo bar that had been basically doing a circuit. It was one of those like Russian spin lock ones, and he sold it to me because I was like basically like trying to get a bar like around Christmas time, I think like 5-6 years ago. And still, like I don't maintain it properly. Like I'll say that now. Like I don't take it open. I don't like grease the inside of it. I don't de-rust it. Still works absolutely fine. It's not a fucking speck on it. It's not bent. Knurling's not worn down. Like they last a very long time. And most bars, I think, from like those kind of like caliber of companies, if you maintain them, you should be able to maybe hand it on to the person who's going to be training after you in your family. They should be able to use it. They'll probably be able to use it for a bit.
It's justifying the expense in it for a lot of people, and
Yeah,
what I'd love to see is like small gyms, institutes, whatever, athletic development centers, like even in the shit area of towns where it's like, hey, you can come in and pay literally hardly any money, like maybe a dinner time pie or whatever, and come in and train, and you're still getting that high level of coaching. The problem there is like you would need like subsidy from the government to help it run.
yeah. Yeah, it's either that or like you'd have to turn such a profit with like the other part of your business that you could then afford to charge like, you know, a nominal fee, or maybe even like, you know, make a bit of a loss so that you're not hemorrhaging money because of that part of the business. But that is like what a lot of places do, because like getting some funding from like the government, like it's not the easiest thing in the world, what you have to do to go through it. So I think some companies do go, when they do charitable stuff, they will just give money to like private organizations to do it, or they'll just go like, we'll just do this ourselves and we'll fund it, because it's just more straightforward, especially because you can do exactly what you want and you can give to exactly the people you want to, which can sometimes also be a massive bonus as well.
Yeah, in the UK, you need to sell your fucking soul to get government funding, or even council like permission. Never mind funding.
Oh,
Like,
it's painful.
but like,
it's absolutely painful.
I think it starts with the likes of yourselves, like creating these things where it shows benefit. You know what I mean? And having a conversation like we're doing now, but like creating those things. I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing. These are the people that have benefited from it. These are the things that we've got. This is the structure that we have. This is the structure that we have for coaching, for kids. And then I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, it will bleed off into other places. You know, there'll be other companies that will jump up and be like, yeah, we'll provide something similar in Glasgow or whatever. And then, you know, councils will hop on board and say, oh, what, you need an extra grand a month for the Alecki bills? All right, no problem. Like, we'll help you out because you're taking, you know, crime's gone down or whatever. Like, you're taking kids off the street and there's less bloody ASBOs and showing me age. There's no longer ASBOs, but you know what I mean?
Oh, they're not. What are they called now?
Nah, I think they got rid of them, mate, because they brought them in for like 2 years and they didn't work. What are you gonna do? Tell a kid who already commits crime, right? Who doesn't give a fuck about the consequence, that he has a curfew and you're gonna slap him on the wrist. He's not gonna give a shit. So they don't work. I think they got rid of them. I think it's just like juvie and a bit of community service. But I don't know. Who knows? Right, mate. Thank you very much.
That's all right, mate.
I really appreciate your
time.
No,
it's really good to be on.
Mate, you can come on whenever you want, lad. Like I always enjoy having a conversation, and like I said before we click the button, like it's all about just learning from people, and I guess one of the reasons why I like doing this as well is everything starts with a conversation, everything starts with a discussion, and if you can iron out a couple creases or like spark a couple of light bulbs in people's minds just by having a conversation, then you know the whole fitness industry benefits, and then it bleeds off into everywhere else, right? Because everyone's, you know, struggling mentally, struggling physically. You know, as a human race, we're getting fucking fatter, we're getting, you know, tougher upstairs. Like, we're dealing with a lot of things mentally, especially with the whole COVID situation. And it all starts with a fucking discussion, right? So if someone can hear, oh, that's a really cool idea, or that'd be awesome, I'm gonna like pop into Built Differently or have a little look on Ronin and pick up a barbell for the first time, it's gonna help them, you know.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I agree.
Well, do you want to shout out some shit for yourself?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to find me, best place is Instagram, just at k.speed on Instagram. So it's KDOT speed, all lowercase, no space. For the Ronin page, if you want to find out some more information about us, you can either just message me directly or you can go to our website. It's just roninstrength.co.uk. Those are the best places to come and find us.
Perfect. Absolutely spot on, mate. Mate, really appreciate your time.
Cool. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Thank you. Legend. Have a, is it a Sunday? No, Saturday. Have a good Saturday.
Yes. You as well, mate.
Well, Saturday's been. I'm in Sunday. All right. Peace.
In a bit,
Thanks,
bye.
lad.